All right, so for my C3 project, I became a volunteer EMT cadet at the local Woodstock Fire and EMS building. Uh, this is where worked. Unfortunately, I could not get a newer photo of our building as it is still currently under construction from a new remodel. But this is like kind of the schematic plan, so you can kind of see where everything is. In our building, it is comprised of all three of the police, fire, and EMT personnel. The front being the police, the back being fire and EMT. That third story area you can see is intended purely for all of the EMTs to live and work. This is an inside view of our one of our hangars, the newer of the big ones. At the time, there aren't any ambulances currently inside, but as you can see, we have engine one, and we also have our Woodstock rescue unit, which that's just a normal truck, but we use it for forestry and wilderness kind of stuff. At any given time, this hangar can hold up to four vehicles, two ambulances, one engine, and then a rescue or an extra engine, depending on what we want. Most of the time, it is filled, except at this current moment, all of the ambulances are off doing something else. This is that third story area that I was talking about where the EMTs live and work. As I might have mentioned, since we pull long hours, a full timer pulls a 24-hour shift at a single time. They have to sleep, they have to eat, they have to do paperwork, they have to kind of just live their lives for those 24 hours in this station. So they have a couched area, they have a really brand new, it's really nice kitchen, they have pantries, they have a workout room, showers, bathrooms, bedrooms. Yeah, and also kind of a fun little note. It's like after what I've noticed is after time, people kind of become almost like a family, living together all this time. 24-hour shifts, sleeping with all these people. Everyone becomes really tight, and it becomes kind of like once you get to know them, you kind of see it's a nice tight knit family that is really enjoyable to be around. Um, as I mentioned, I am a cadet, meaning I am in training. I'm not a full time EMT, and as I also mentioned, I'm a volunteer, so I do not get paid for anything I do. Any hours that I do pull is on my own initiative, and yeah. So since I am a cadet, I am certified. I am able to do and take part in patient care, so I can do uh, vitals, certain tests needed. I can't work with sharps or anything too invasive into the body. I can ask questions and do paperwork, but generally, when I am at the station and a call comes out, I am person number three that goes out. And in the picture to the right, where that man is sitting, that's kind of the helm seat. That's where I would sit. Um, and patient is, of course, on the cot. That's generally how it works. Another big thing that we have to focus on is in each one of these little cabinets that you can see, there's a lot more of them on the inside and outside. We have to carry absolutely everything that we bring on a single call because we do not have the time once a call comes out to, gather together whatever we need and go out. Then we have to bring absolutely everything for no matter what kind of call we have. And because of that, we also have to know where everything is. So we have a very tight knit organization system, and we all know where everything is at any given moment. Continuing on what I do, that's me on a call. Another thing that becomes a really big priority for me is seeing that I am still a kid. There's some things I'm not allowed to do, and as technically, even though I am a kid, I am a professional currently working in this field. I have to pay attention to confidentiality laws. That's why none of the pictures of actual scenes, personnel, or information will be given in this presentation. Everything that I'm talking about might represent some situation I've been in, but it will not be actual images from that case. No, this ambulance is ambulance three. This is actually one of our real ambulances. Again, person, the cot, that's where the patient is, and all of our items are sitting around. Most of our drawers are kind of label different things. Like to the left image, the cabinet above me, that's for our intubation and airways stuff. So we kind of have everything really well organized. Now going into certain situations. One of my most gruesome situations I had to deal with was what is known as hoarding. If you don't know what hoarding is, it is basically an accumulation of mass, different things, with the inability to get rid of it. The house that I had to go to um, was an older man, mid late 60s, who was unresponsive. So that told us that he was high risk and there would be a lot of danger. We also on that call had COVID risks, so I was exposed to COVID possibly on that call. And what was not related to the call, but what we had to deal with was a hoarding situation where there were animals and people living in a unsuitable and unlivable situation, as we found. But as that wasn't the reason we were there for the call, that wasn't what we addressed. However, according to Vermont laws, we did have to tell authorities about the living situation because from what we saw, it was unlivable. This is kind of like one of our big things is even though this housing situation was not why we were called there for, it is something that we have to pay attention to because although um, we're not family members, we aren't relatives to this person, we don't know them. From the minute that we leave the station after we get a call to the minute that we drop them off at the hospital, we are in their lives for however long that is, and since we are part of their lives, it is up to us to take care of them accordingly. And while taking care of them, it is not up to us to judge, be disrespectful, or make any kind of personal remarks towards them. It is not up to us if we're dealing with a racist person. We cannot judge them for their sexuality, the way they look, the way they dress, the way they live. It is not up to us. So, like I said, no matter what, we have to be respectful and we have to live. We have to work with the possibility of being put into a situation that we might not like. Uh, then over on the left side, broken bone. This was one of my first gruesome calls where I first saw blood. Um, there was always like the kind of you talk with patients a lot, and there's always most calls aren't that big of an emergency, but on this certain call, I really had to get in there as a third person and help, like actually get blood on my hands, which was kind of one of those big thrown in your face first times. You aren't used to it. Uh, the other really important, really big call that we can get is suicide. Um, this was one of my first. This is actually my first call. Was a suicide call, and although most like the public kind of tends to think that it's you get called for injuries, emergencies, and they bring you to the hospital really quickly. What we end up having to do is once we start treating you, we start asking questions. We start asking what hurts, why it hurts, history, things about personal information that even your own friends and family might not know. Um, and on certain calls like these, where you deal with someone who is in this kind of situation, when you were talking with them, you hear certain things and you see certain things that are sometimes foreign to you, or sometimes they might hit close to home for you. Um, but it's all the same to us. It's a dark call, and we deal with it the way that we deal with it. But again, like I said, it is not up to us to judge, and it's our only job is to help as much as we can help. So Vermont is a really fun state. Let's pick this up a little bit. Vermont has 18.7% of our population is over 65. So we deal with a lot of elderly patients. We deal with a lot of people who are older, might have smaller injuries, or might just be really frail and need a transport. One of our main calls that we get, and this is true for most sm- medium to smaller ambulance services, is we get transport calls. That just means someone needs to get transported from their home to the hospital or from one hospital to another hospital. They aren't that tough. Normally, there's no emergency or anything. It's just we put them in and we bring them to wherever they need to go. But there's always since we are dealing with a lot of elderly patients, we are taught certain things and prioritize certain things in our learning, like diabetes, uh, dementia, neurodegenerative diseases, and that kind of thing. So we are taught, uh, we prioritize learning things about like our percentages. So, like things that we will deal with more. We won't be learning about how to deal with rattlesnake bites as much as maybe dealing with like a mudslide or something, or maybe a tree falls on someone. So that's kind of like one of the main things that we you have to realize once you start learning this kind of stuff is that we focus on what we would be dealing with out there. You still learn what is needed to learn, so you still learn how to deal with a rattlesnake, but they prioritize making sure that you know what we will be dealing with out in the field. Whew, okay, and then another really big part, as I said, we get a lot of gruesome calls, and I had to deal with some bad calls myself, but I had the privilege of dealing with just one a day, basically. I would come in on Wednesdays, pull 2 hours, maybe get a call, and so I'd only get like one call a week, and those kinds of calls kind of stick with you, and you have to deal with them for a while. And knowing how those single calls affected me, you can only think about how it affects the other workers there who have to deal with maybe 4 or 5 or 6 calls each day they pull a shift. So because of that, and because I know how it can affect me mentally, you have to admit that it takes a brave individual to do this kind of thing every day and be able to experience this kind of thing, the things that we see every day, and be able to keep on working the way that they do. And the people that I work with are some of the most brave and honorable people I've ever met. And I appreciate everything that they taught me and everything that they have shown me in the time that I pulled there. And I hope I can just keep learning more from them. And that's it.